guys, I'm Kaycee Rice, and welcome to Just Being We. That is so crazy for me to say. It's finally happening. I am starting a podcast. But I'm not really calling it a podcast because I don't want it to be your typical type of podcast where you're sitting at a desk and you have a microphone and things seem tense. So that's why I have this couch and I'm in a legit sweatshirt and sweatpants. I have some candles going and it's something so comfortable and it's almost like I'm just talking to you guys on FaceTime. I don't want it to be anything more than an open conversation that's just being captured. And we're going to get into some deep topics, and I'm finally going to share another side of myself that I've never shown before and have been too scared to do so before. So, first things first, hi guys, I'm Kaycee Rice. If you're new, I am a professional dancer. I am also a choreographer and a teacher. I love to act, so I am an actress. I'm a businesswoman. I also have bought my first house at 18 years old. I have a brand called Weirdo Apparel, and now I guess I'm a podcaster, which it's crazy that I can actually say that because I've been thinking about doing a podcast ever since 2020. And so this may seem like out of left field for a lot of people, like why is she starting a podcast? But it's been in the works for quite a few years, and I feel like timing is everything with anything in life, and it felt like the right time for me to speak about things that I've gone through and finally open up to people a little bit more on the human level of me. And I felt the only way that I was going to be able to do that was on my time, on my terms, and through something where I'm able to connect directly to you, whoever is listening. And I feel like my greatest superpower is getting to connect with people on a deeper level with anything that I love to do. So for me, that's through dancing, it's through my creativity, or it's through being able to talk to you guys. Because I'm only 20 years old and I'm just a regular, normal, young woman trying to figure out life. And it's a lot easier when there's someone out there who's willing to listen. And I hope that I could be the voice and that light and that ear for somebody to also listen to them and just know that you are not alone in anything that you're going through. And anything that you are going through, it's completely valid, and you are allowed to feel however you may need to feel, and don't ever feel like it's not enough or that you aren't enough, because I've dealt with plenty of that. And I think the most important thing is to remember that you are never alone. And so before we get started, I just wanted to point out, I have a notebook here. I tried to become a little bit prepared before this, so I wrote down a few points, and I want to make sure that I get to every single one of these, especially for this introduction, so you guys are prepared for what's to come. It's so exciting. I've been working on this for a couple months now, and everything just kind of stuck. And if you know me, I'm very indecisive, and so even with something such as the name, Just Being We, I thought of it and I was like, you know what, let's do it. Because if I would have second guessed myself, I probably wouldn't have a name for another 2 years. So let's start with that, the name, Just Being We. I thought it would be fun, like a little play on words with just being me and just being you. It's kind of been my philosophy through growing up, is to always remain true to myself. And I thought I would use Just Being We to have it be more inclusive, so it's not just me, but it's whoever I bring on here. It's with you guys, and it's all about being inclusive for everybody and feeling like this conversation is for anyone out there who just needs a friend to listen to, or to be listened. And so this podcast is basically about just my voice being heard, because I don't talk very often, and I've given hints here and there about things that I've gone through or things that are very important to me and that I'm passionate about. But I think I've always been a little timid and a little scared to actually talk about it because whenever I'm alone, I feel like I'm so awkward or I just don't like the sound of my voice, which is kind of counterproductive to what a podcast is because you're only using your voice. Um, so I thought this year, you know what, I wanted to try something different and I wanted to break out of my comfort zone. And I feel like a way of overcoming a little bit of my anxiety too is to do things that challenge me and that scare me. And even before I filmed this, I kind of got in my own head and I was like, oh no, no one's gonna like this. And it scared me, the thought of putting myself out there for others to judge or others to view. It's the most terrifying thing in the world. But I'm not able to grow unless I push myself in those aspects. And I've been wanting to do something like this since 2020. And so now is the time because tomorrow is never guaranteed. And I'm just ready to finally share everything that's been in my mind because I am an overthinker. I get in my head a lot and I isolate myself, and that's not always the greatest thing to do. And sometimes I preach, but I don't practice what I preach. And so that's what I'm really trying to do is to grow myself as a person and truly practice what I preach. And so some of the things that I wanted to touch on for this podcast are going to be things such as mental health. I want to dive deeper into that because it is an extremely important topic to me, but I feel like in our world today, it's something that has always been a little bit uncomfortable to talk about, but I feel like as humanity, we are evolving and we're finally becoming more comfortable about talking about these things because it's very important to actually voice how we feel. Because if we don't, then no one's gonna know, and that's the scariest thing, is to feel like you're helpless to somebody else. Because I think in one way or another, everyone has gone through something mentally challenging. And so when people gather the courage to be able to speak upon it, I feel like it can really help other people as well. And sometimes people aren't ready to share everything, and that's completely valid too. You don't have to owe anything to anybody, and you can do things on your own time. Like I said, this has been years in the making, and I could have done something like this years ago, but I would not have been mentally prepared and I wouldn't have been able to articulate my feelings and emotions properly. And I would have broken down in front of the camera or been scared, and it just wouldn't have been right. And the timing just wasn't right. So, always with anything in your life, do it on your own time and don't worry about what other people are doing because what we see on social media, especially, is just a highlight reel. I always say that, and I always have to remind myself is that we choose what we post on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter, all these platforms. We get to choose the things that we want people to see. And most of the time, that's not our vulnerability. It's not our hardships. It's not what we go through everyday life. And it's just showing the highlights of everything. So it's very important. And I'm saying this to remind myself too, to not compare yourself to what others are putting out on social media, because I have fallen victim to that where and I still do it to this day, and I don't know why, but it's become a bad habit that I'm trying to break, and I constantly compare myself. I think when I don't have too much going on and I'm just scrolling on social media for hours upon hours, which is not a good thing. I really don't like when I do that. Um, but I start to compare myself. And even if it's just a self conscious thing or a subconscious thing, and I don't realize it's happening, um, it's really bad mentally and it's mentally draining. And I feel like that's why last year I kind of took a step back from social media a little bit more and really dug deep into my roots and what truly made me happy. And those things don't always have to be work. I love to work. Don't get me wrong. Um, I love my job. I love it so much, and I love getting to do new things and do things for fun and create and constantly learn. But other things that make me happy are just hanging out with my friends or going to Disneyland or staying up late or just talking with people on a deeper level. I love getting to connect with people and hear about their life and get to know them for who they are, because it's just so relieving when you get to have that connection with someone, because it's very rare and there's very few people who are able to do that or who want to do that. And when you find those connections, it's magic. And so that's what I want this to be. It's our own little magical conversation. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at. Oh, other things that I wanted to talk about. So, mental health. That is the number one thing that I want to talk about during this podcast. I'm also going to be talking about things such as self-care, finding your identity, stress and anxiety, which that is very important for me to talk about because I deal with it on a daily basis. And honestly, I feel like I had an anxiety attack before filming this video today. I started to shake and I felt my breath kind of shorten, and my heart kind of feel heavy. And that's just me getting in my own head because I'm like trying something new and don't know how it's going to be received. But one of the main reasons why I felt ready to do something like this year and now is because I'm not expecting any sort of outcome from this. It's more of me giving you guys a little piece into my life journal and a way for me to get things off of my chest and just breathe. That is the main thing for me. Is I feel like when I'm able to talk about these things that I've been kind of hinting at but never fully dove deep into, it'll be like a breath of fresh air, and I'll finally be able to share 100% of me to the people that I love most, which are you guys who are listening. And so as we get deeper into the series, this is a short series that I wanted to create. So it's 8 episodes long. This is the introduction episode. And each episode I'm going to bring someone that has inspired me or has kind of gone through the same thing, and we're just going to capture a conversation, pretend like the camera's not even there. And I think that's very beautiful that I'm able to do that and that people are able to do that. I think this opens up doors to opportunities that you can even do, because I don't know if anyone else has ever done this, but I have always found myself talking to myself through, like, whenever I drive or just whenever I'm alone for long periods of time, and I'll talk myself through almost a podcast episode. And I'm like, why didn't I just film that? Because it was such a great conversation. And sometimes I regret that because I've had some really deep conversations with myself that I'm like, dang, this should be filmed. But it's so simple and it's so easy, and you never know who's watching or listening on the other end, and your story could help somebody else. And again, doing it on your own time is extremely important to remember and not feel like you have to be forced by others to constantly be doing something. And as long as you know where you're at in your life, that's all that matters, and nobody else can dictate what you choose to do with your life. And so for me, towards the end of this series, I'm going to be talking a little bit more deeper into my story, growing up through social media, which if you knew me, I had a viral solo when I was 10 years old, so 10 years ago this year. And when I go back through my life, I can see how much I've grown, and especially through social media, the coolest thing that I believe is being able to go back in time and see yourself grow up. That is, I've watched old videos of myself growing up, and I know exactly how I felt in that moment in time, and I'm being transported in that. So I know when I was happy, I know when I was sad, I know when I was angry, and so I get to see all these different versions of myself through time. And this is going to be another time capsule of that. And I feel like within the past couple of years, I have gone through a lot more, trying to find the right words, a lot more human struggles than I ever did before in my life. I think when I was younger, I always tried to be the positive person for everybody in the positive light, and always smiled, always was happy. But I think as I grew older, I realized that it's important to have that balance, and it's okay to not be okay. That sentence may seem like a cliche, but it's the most true and honest quote that life has to offer, is that it's okay not to be okay. And so I have dealt with a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, and have had anxiety attacks that truly terrified me to the point where I felt like I couldn't breathe. I've gone through points of a really low depression state. And another thing that I wanted to bring up about my mental health was that I had an eating disorder. And that the fact that I'm able to sit here and not completely break down when saying that, I feel like is so much self-growth within myself, because if you would have asked me even last year to speak upon that, I would have just completely frozen, broke down, and not be able to hold myself up to even formulate words. And so I felt it was the right time for me to share my story, because I want people to know that what you see on social media isn't the full story, and it's just a human being behind the screen. And sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we see these people and it's almost like we're watching robots, because society has just molded us into one. And if you do something that someone doesn't like, it's almost like you're wrong, which isn't the case, because you are able to make mistakes and learn from that. And that's what makes us human, is being able to learn from our mistakes and being able to see us grow. And I want people to take out of this that nothing in life is perfect. And this podcast, it's going to be anything but perfect. I think the imperfections are what makes things beautiful and unique to the individual who's doing it. And I'm just so excited and honored that I have this platform to finally be able to speak about topics that I am very passionate about, and that I believe that should be talked about more often, and become normalized with it. Because talking about mental health, I'm very glad that it is starting to become a topic at the forefront, but it has always been something that I know I can learn so much more about. And now that I have my own struggles with it, I want to be able to help other people. And I believe that's one of my other superpowers, is being able to connect with people and help them. If I get to help even one person, and if one person is listening to this podcast right now, that means the absolute world to me. And I just want you to know that I'm here for you. I see you and I hear you. And I hope that you see me for me, and not just for my talent, but also just for me as a human being. And so this is so new, it's so fresh, and it's nothing complicated. I don't want to complicate things. I just want to freely talk about things openly. And this is a no judgment zone. I do not judge people for what they are feeling. I embrace when people open up to me and when I get to open up to them. I think that is so beautiful to be able to open up to someone, and vulnerability is what makes you strong. I know that society has deemed vulnerability and showing your emotions as a weakness, but those are our strengths. Those are what makes us human. Those are what makes each of us an individual ourselves. And when you can fully tap into how you feel, you start to realize that everyone feels this way. Everyone goes through the highs and the lows, and it's important to understand that, because you don't want to become a robot who just does things to please other people. And that's always been a big struggle of mine, is sometimes I feel the need to please other people before I please myself. And I'm changing my mindset this year of just pleasing myself and being happy and about what I choose to do, but also challenging myself to go outside of my comfort zone and step outside my box. And I just cannot wait for what this year is going to bring. I said this at the beginning of the year, and I've said it almost every year, but I actually feel it this year, that 2023 is something different. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I'm turning 21 this year, but I just feel like it's a new beginning and a new era. And speaking about that, this is a great transition. I decided to release this on 1/11/2023 because I was looking up angel numbers, and I'm really into manifestation, but I've never really, I've understood angel numbers, but I've never dove into that topic. But I saw that 111 signifies, I looked this up, so I'm not plagiarizing, signifies confidence within self and motivates own strength and decision making when opportunities are sent our way. But it also means a new beginning or a new era. And that's actually my phone screen cover. It says a new era of me, which I love opening my phone to that. And so I thought it was so perfect. And I was like, this feels right. This timing is right. And so I'm going to be releasing for the next 7 weeks episodes every Wednesday and talking about the deeper topics and getting comfortable with getting into uncomfortable conversations. And I'm really excited for the people that I'm bringing on. They all inspire me so much, and I feel like I can learn a lot from them. And I hope that you guys get to learn a lot from me and about me. And I hope that my story is able to touch even just one person out there. So if you or anybody that you know is going through any sort of struggle, just know that you are not alone. And again, I'm here to listen to you if you are here for me. I want to give out the energy that I want to receive, and that's going to be positivity, that's going to be love, and that's going to be vulnerability. And so it's not always going to be the great things. It may be the terrible things or the things that aren't a highlight. But I hope this brings us closer to seeing each other on a human level. And I'm really excited to share more, and thank you for just listening. If you're out there, I love you guys so much. And with that being said, welcome to Just Being We!